G'day, it's Chris. I'm the spiritual pitbull, and today we're talking about what is an emotion. It's the opening introduction to the podcast or to the masterclass on emotional well-being. So let's just move through this right now and see what we can decipher for you. In the opening video, what I would like to talk about is what is an emotion and why would we want to control them? Why would we want to have some, exert some human positioning on emotion? Firstly, what is an emotion? Emotion for some people, when it gets too much, is called brain fog. So the sense of overwhelm, the sense of disappointment, the sense of hurt, the sense of pain, the sense of sadness, the sense of loss, the sense of gain, the sense of experience of life comes, and we call it brain fog. Too much of something, overwhelm, it becomes brain fog. Angry, bitter, and mild forms of these things, these emotions can be a little bit interesting, but when they get too much, they're called brain fog. So they're also called genius. So a person who can tap into their emotions, because emotions lead to feelings, and feelings are what manifest things in life. If you don't have the passion or the inspiration or the love or the joy for something, it's certainly not going to stay in your life for very long, nor will it manifest. So control of emotion in itself has no real benefit. It just makes you feel calm, and calm doesn't achieve anything. Calm just sits you down quietly calm. What we're trying to do is get what we want in life, which may be a good job, maybe a good relationship, maybe improve our health, maybe change the world in some way, maybe get a book written that we've been trying to write. These come from feelings of enthusiasm, feelings of inspiration, feelings of gratitude, and all those feelings come from emotions. And those emotions are generated by us. And so if we can somehow control our emotions and determine where we want them to land, we're in a great space, and we've made a great start on the process of getting what we want in life. So there's three aspects. What do we want? We need to be really, really clear on that. What feelings are required to get what we want? And last but not least, what actions will those feelings lead to? Let's have a look. What do I want? Well, so often our emotions block us from stating truly and honestly what we want. We're shy, or we're feeling hurt from something, or we're telling stories about the past that aren't true. So what we want can be highly influenced by a history of emotional and feelings and stories that we have carried forward into the present and have absolutely a massive effect on creating, manifesting, and causing the future. So the most important thing right up front is to clear any emotional baggage we've got, so that we really, 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 really know, rather than reacting to things, we really know what we really, really want. The second aspect of this is feeling. So, for example, when a sport team runs out on the field, what feeling is essential to that sport team to victory? Now, if it's in table tennis, if it's in basketball, it will be different. If it's a swimming team, what feeling do these people need to have in order to engage fully in their sport? And feelings are an interesting thing because they're so easy when we're not under pressure. When you take a corporate group into a forest and get them to walk around, there is no pressure. Anybody can feel anything. They feel inspired, they feel enthusiastic, they feel generous, they feel kind, they feel connected, they feel visionary. The question is, can we feel these things when we get under the pump? When we're in the last quarter of a football game, or we're the last 5 kilometers of a triathlon, or when we're in the last 2K of an ocean swim, when there's sharks around? Can we hold on to that feeling, which keeps us calm, keeps us relaxed, and keeps us strong, and keeps us focused under the pump? Now that's the real mark of emotional mastery. Emotional mastery, sitting on a cushion or sitting in a building somewhere in idealistic conditions or in a workshop, is not really mastery of feelings at all. not really mastery of emotion. So I'd like to talk about that a little further down the track. Finally, our feelings always lead to action. Now, there are a lot of people who sit around feeling good things and wanting a lot of things but don't do much about it. So when we rub the genie and we say, please bring me what I want in the future, and say, I feel really inspired, I can feel what it will feel like to have this thing, I'm fully engaged, mind, body, spirit. The next thing is going to be observed is, what are you doing? Are your actions aligned with your wants and your feelings? Now, authenticity is not something we can fake. When a person meets us and we're doing our work, or we're coaching or selling or delivering a product or a service, or we're serving them in a shop in retail environment, when the action of the individual and the feeling of the individual is disconnected, we know it and we intuit this. And so it's really important for us all, as we advance into more and more sophisticated levels of human awareness, to link our want, our feeling, and our action together. That's not so hard. So let's have a look at how emotions are created, a little bit of theory here. So the most important thing to realize here at this point in time about emotion is that the inputs that cause emotions are innocent. Somebody dies. That is not an automatic trigger for sadness. Somebody dies is an event. Then we have the chance to interpret how we feel about somebody dying. And in between how we feel about somebody dying and somebody dying are beliefs. And that's where emotions come from. Let's say somebody wins the lotto, a more pleasant way to discuss this. Somebody wins the lotto. Winning the lotto is an event. And events are events until we split them in half and create them as good things or bad things. As soon as we do that, based on our stories, our memories, so 99% of all emotions and all reactions are memories of the past, things that trigger us, then we interpret them, we get perceptions. Those perceptions ultimately create feelings. Those feelings generate results, cause us to act in certain ways. If, for example, we hear a car coming down a street and it's out of control, bipping its horn, we can A, say that's just an event and be smashed. Or we can say that's an event that I fear because I've recognized this sound in the past. That event will therefore go to an emotion. It'll dig up a memory, run for cover. It'll interpret it. That perception takes place is all within a giga-nanosecond, unmeasurable amounts of time. It will cause us to get a feeling. The feeling will be fear. The fear causes results, which means we act, we move, we jump. So all activities in the world, whether it's the World Trade Center, a bombing in a bus event, somebody winning something, a football team winning, are events. They have no emotion attached to them until human beings emotionalize that event. So our interactions with other people are emotionless connections until we add emotions. Events are events until we emotionalize them. We emotionalize them by bringing them in through our six senses, the eyes, the ears, the mouth, the nose, the sense of touch, and the intuit. We bring experiences of the world in, and they come in as events. Our brain, through memory and interpretation and perception, causes us to judge, to make a decision about that event. That event, therefore, becomes a feeling. We feel sad or happy or attracted or repelled. And those feelings cause us to act. So, and if we really want to change our actions in life and really want to improve our performance in sport, our performance in business, our performance in relationship, we really need to go back to those memories and the interpretations and the perceptions in order to create permanent change in our feelings that will create permanent change in our actions and experience and results in life. So, control emotions means control results. So the next question people ask me over and over again is, are there good emotions and bad emotions? Well, you'll hear it said many, many times that there are such things, that hate, anger, cruelty, and these emotions are bad, and that good emotions are kindness, generosity, and love. I disagree. I think there are dark situations, and I think there are light situations. The same emotions exist in the dark situation as there are in the light situation. So we have available anger looking at the universe. We have anger looking at Halloween. I'd rather suggest that the levels of the human brain that go from the unconscious brain, which is the cellular brain in the cells of our body, all the way up to the corpus callosum and the basal ganglia inside the brain, that these different levels of the brain kick in at different levels of emotion. And therefore, there are lower emotions or unconscious emotions, or as I'd rather call them in this work, unproductive emotions, and there are productive emotions. There are emotions that will get you what you want, that will cause you to feel things, that will lead you in the direction of what you want and cause action in that way. And there are unproductive emotions that will cause you to feel things and take you away from the things you want. Now, many people are confused by this because they'd rather feel happy, even if happiness is not an emotion that will lead them to what they want. And so they get this argument within themselves. What should I feel? I want to feel peaceful. There's one. I want to feel harmonious, but I want to succeed in business. And the feelings of peacefulness and harmoniousness and the success in business are two different topics. The feelings we have in this regard might be beautiful in an ashram, might be beautiful at home after the kids are gone to bed, but they are not the emotions and the feelings that will lead to the things we want. And there's a confusion, and that in the long term becomes regret. And I'd like to explain this just a little further before we move on. Events are events until we change them, until we judge them. The most important thing to recognize here is that there are 7 areas of life, and we have emotions quite isolated in each of the 7 areas. And let's be clear about here. If I have things going bad at work, it doesn't necessarily mean that I have things going bad at home. If I have things going bad spiritually, if I'm in unproductive emotions in my spiritual life, but in production, I could still be productively in an emotional state in my financials. So each of the 7 areas of life generates its own levels, 7 levels of emotion. However, overall, on an averaging basis, we live at the lowest of the 7. So if I'm, let's say, confused mentally, and therefore I'm in a got-to state of mind, I'm operating in my cellular brain, and I go to work and everything's going swimmingly, somewhere or another, the contamination of my emotional state at the lowest level of my life, in this case we've said the mental, will permeate across into all the other areas. And although I may be on the surface operating at a more conscious level, underneath, deeply, I will be in fear, and that fear translates across the 7 areas. So it's really important for total human awareness to see ourselves in these 7 areas, to understand our problem solving and understand our emotions in the 7 areas. But it's more important than that to recognize that any one area can bring us down in all 7. One of the most important things that we can recognize in this modeling is that a human being goes through 3 phases in every emotional state. Firstly, there's the state of creation. Secondly, there's a state of maintenance. And thirdly, there's a state of destruction. So there are emotions that are appropriate in some areas, and there are emotions that are inappropriate in other areas. So for example, anger is a great destroyer. Now, you'd say anger is bad. Well, I agree. But sometimes you need anger internally built into you. You need anger to drive yourself through change. Otherwise, you get stuck. And people who are afraid to let go of the past, let go of their modeling, end up in a toxic environment because they've decided anger is a bad emotion. But you can use anger to get you through tough times. So the thing is, we don't want to call emotions good and bad. We want to call them productive and unproductive and use them. Even anger is a productive emotion when we need it. Hate and dislike and all these other emotions have their function. And I think this is a really important thing to recognize. I'm sorry about the words at the bottom of the page being cut off here a bit, but here we go. Learn, apply it, then forget it. That's the cycle where we use the feminine side of emotions to learn, to open ourselves up and be available. We apply it and actually get to own this learning, and then we need to move on and learn a new emotion, get new learnings. Pleasure, ambivalence, and pain, another three. Attraction, depreciation, and repulsion, very often the 7-year cycle in relationships. So rather than think of emotions as good and bad, it's better to think of them as horses for courses, functional things that you can use. And the way you get to use an emotion is to love it. To love an emotion means it's yours to use whenever you want. A person who doesn't love an emotion, it gets used by the emotion. If we are angry at anger, then the anger we have will come out whether we like it or not. If we love our anger, we have control over it and can use it when it's appropriate and keep it at bay when it's not. So are there good and bad emotions? No. There are just productive and unproductive emotions. So going back to this cone of consciousness that we've got in front of us here, these emotions at the top, love to, choose to, desire to, are the emotions you really want to gravitate towards if you're in the business of getting what you want out of life. Whether that's, as I said, a happy family, a good relationship, financial success, business success, sporting success. These emotions up in the love to, choose to, desire to will save you time and money. They will save you a lot of energy because these are low energy, high power, high voltage emotions. The low emotions, which are very violent and very energy consuming, need to, should, ought to, got to, and have to. These emotions cost you time and money. And the more time we spend down there in those lower emotions, in a state of, we called it before, mind fog, where we've lost a little bit control of our life, the more time we spend in there, the more time and money we're going to spend. Time is one of the greatest essences of life. As you know, in a relationship, time is so precious to both of you. So the only real question we have is, how do we get from the bottom to the top? So there are 7 levels of the brain. There's a little bit of science going on here. I apologize for that, but I've got to do the thing. The got to, should, need to, want to, desire to, choose to, love to levels of emotions. Each corresponds to a cellular level of the brain. The got to is the cellular brain. The should do is the spinal cord, the brainstem. The need to, the basal ganglia, is the want to. The limbic brain, the cortic brain, and the corpus callosum, of course, is the love to. And you can take that in up through the evolution of the human being. We arrived on this planet, on this beautiful earth, in a cellular, single cell form, moved to amphibian, reptilian, mammalian, human, and spiritual. So you can see the evolution. Our evolution is built into the DNA of the human body. And when we use certain language, we tap into certain levels of brain because we need to. But I think what we've got to recognize here is the got to, should, need to, and want to levels of the brain are for fighting, almost physical fighting. And there's no necessity for us to be down in that level in most of our lives. I've seen people get into car rage and all sorts of things, or screaming at an office or screaming at their partner, and they're down in the got to, should do. Now, these lower levels of emotion are very unproductive. They use massive amounts of energy, and they will send you home from work at night completely exhausted. So when you're running around if you're in a retail environment, you say, I've got to serve this person, or I should do this, or I need to do that, or I want to. When you're saying those words to yourself, you are using up petrol and going nowhere. They're just energy in motion, emotion. When you say, I love to do this, I'm choosing to serve this customer, or this is my desire. My desire is to serve clients in this environment. Then you're using so little petrol and achieving so much, you will save yourself time and money. So, 7 areas of life, 7 levels of thinking. We're all over the place in each of the one, but the objective is to bring ourselves into balance in each of the 7 areas of life. A balanced person is balanced emotionally in each area of life, rather than balancing their lousy work with a great sport at the end of the day, or balancing their social life with their financial and things like that. So I think there's an opportunity here from an emotional point of view is to become really empowered. So events are events until we split them into positive and negative. Our process, the process I use and the process I teach, is called an emotional shower. And what an emotional shower does, it brings the positive and negative split of a thought back together again, and eventually simply creates the event that was there before we emotionalized it. So we do this with an emotional shower. We write, let's say the day, let's call an event, your working day yesterday. Your working day yesterday. There were good things that went on at work. Write them down. What are the negatives of the good things that went on at work yesterday? List them down. The next column. What are the negatives of the things that went on at work yesterday? And the last column, what are the positives of the negative things that went on at work yesterday? All of my clients do emotional showers. We call it the pig poo boots process. And the pig poo boots process basically says if you had a job in a pig farm and you were sweeping the pig poo in a pig farm with the gumboots on and overalls, you would not walk into your house with the gumboots and the overalls on. There's no way. What you would do is take them off. You would take off the overalls. You'd probably take a shower at work. You put on some clean clothes and you go home clean. But if you're in a white collar job, there are no overalls and there are no boots. There's just the smell, the cloud of the emotions that you've been processing at work all day. And if you walk in the front door, there's the same smell as pig poo boots. Walking through the house, everybody trying to balance you back, everybody trying to help you come back to be the centered, loving, kind person that you are. And everybody goes into discombobulation trying to help you become present with them. So turning up at home means we do an emotional shower before we walk in the front door. And that means the people inside the house, your partner and your children and your grandparents, if you're lucky, don't have to be your counterbalances and therefore have arguments with you. So there's some productive emotions. Once again, the top line of this got cut off. Presence, love, gratitude, certainty. So I think the most productive emotions are gratitude, presence, certainty, and love. And I spend a lot of time helping people create those 4 states of mind, not permanently, but temporarily, because I know that we lose it and we need to know the process to get them back again. Unproductive emotions are anger, regret, unhappy, and disappointment. You're a power station, a high voltage power station. Now, this is a picture of a coal-fired power station, and I know some of you watching this right now won't enjoy that image. But the bottom line is a power station creates an amazing amount of energy, and that energy is you. And that energy can come up through the wires of your body, the nervous system, and express itself in your actions. But if between the power station and the expression in your actions, there are a bundle of emotions turbulating you, it's like cutting wires. And those wires lay dead on the ground and zap into the earth and maybe even electrocute you. So our job is to make sure that if we're going to waste a massive amount of coal or a massive amount of wind or a massive amount of water or whatever resource we use to generate electricity, we don't waste it. We don't waste it on emotions that are unproductive, on actions that come from emotions that are unproductive, that don't lead us in the direction of what we want. And we know what we want with such clarity because we've processed the baggage, the stories that give our emotions their twist, that split events into positive and negatives and actually can take us way off track into an emotional world that doesn't reappear itself in reality. This is Chris. You have a beautiful day. Bye for now.